You don't know what the basic funding formula is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it could be developed, but I'm not sure. I mean, look where we're at.
Well,
We've done a month of it.
we're hearing that we're getting more money. We could always use this year's as a baseline, but we know what our contracts are, we know what our fixed costs are, we know the big three. So we can probably get 85–90% of it. We know the cyber costs.
We're getting pretty good at our expenditure side, we can adequately project. The revenue, I mean, we have what, 28–30% of our total revenue state driven? Yeah, we still have that complete unknown that we'll have every year. So from an expenditure standpoint, yeah, we can come in and say, we would need to come up with X amount of dollars this year, 3 years out, 5 years out, and have a fairly accurate number. Again, we know our medical is a good example where we're self-insured. You could have 10 people come in and have some massive claims, and that would impact our medical number, but for the most part, we trend that out and normalize it anyhow. So yeah, from an expenditure standpoint, I could. Revenue standpoint, we primarily know local revenue is 67% of our total budget. Really, 56% of that is really, or most of that, 67% is real estate taxes, which is 56% of our total budget.
For me, I'm just thinking, if we're going to have to be here again, which we are, it's what we did. But if it's some of the same subjects again, I'd like to start preparing now, so that I already know what it's going to be within reason. I mean, whatever it is that you can figure on. I guess it's just for planning, long-term planning, it would be better for the district. And the other thing is, if you do something over here, and it, let's say, frees up money, can you use that money more, or can you use it better educationally, spending it one place instead of the other? One question, in the more aggressive budget, are there any new hires? How many people? New employees?
We want to hire the new curriculum person. We haven't brought that forward. We had the job description, but we still have that to bring forward as a new position. The refocus room position would probably technically be new. What am I missing? I think that's it.
I have a question, Aaron, and this is also probably personnel. We have the 15 teachers retiring, and part of what we had talked about with the Montessori teachers was that we would be moving out these teachers with retirement and bringing those 4 teachers and aides into these positions. Now, let's say we save Montessori this year. It sounds like it's coming up next year. It comes up next year. Those teachers that this year we know have a guaranteed position, will they have a position next year? Or are we going to absorb these 15 positions or possibly have to fill them outside? And then if we were to eliminate Montessori next year, we eliminate these current employees. Right now we'd be keeping them. Next year, can we make that same promise?
No.
They have tenure. They've been around long enough, so it wouldn't be them. I shouldn't say that. I think looking at it, most of them have the certifications that are elementary based with plus or minus special ed and so forth. In all likelihood, there would be retirements next year that they would go in and fill in, and then one of the more recent hires would be furloughed. And that was one of the things with when we were looking at the Montessori this year, is that we know exactly where those people would go. So everybody would go into a place and we wouldn't have to furlough anybody, which has been a feather in our cap. With all of this, we haven't had to furlough any teachers, I don't believe.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the board have any comments? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, Nate Arnold again. I'll stand. So, is the itemized budget, the objects file, I think it was called, is that available? publicly? I know the PowerPoint budget's posted.
Yeah, it's-
Preliminaries out there.
It's been on.
Preliminary
Is it
budget's
posted,
available.
the itemized one? Okay. I'll look for that, I'm sorry, I didn't see the details there. To Mrs. McClintock, I know she's having a sidebar, so I don't wanna interrupt her.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I just wanted to ask, to your question, I think, Mr. Pike, to your question around, we want to have preparedness for, 3-4 year scenarios. We want to project where we would be next year. We've talked about a lot of things that we don't have, that we're having good faith estimates for. Top lines, potential tax increases, funding from the state, sale of buildings, budget reserve. Those are all magnitudes of the cost items that we've seen here. What would you recommend as guidance? So I've heard that we're looking at it as least affected number of students. In the scenario that you've discussed here, if we talk about roughly $400,000 and some of those other items that we're unsure of, $1 million of tax revenue, $2 million from the sale of buildings, the reserve that we have. I mean, that's 400,000 is a small percentage compared to some of the other factors that we're trying to project a good faith estimate for. So in addition to number of students affected, what would you recommend would be guidance for making the decisions for the board around the right percentage of that, what you have confidence in controlling, what you don't? Is that
First
clear?
of all, I apologize for not listening to you.
Me too.
I
No,
apologize.
not-
No, I apologize.
Was, no problem.
I don't have an answer to your question right now.
Okay.
That's as honest as I can get.
Okay.
I don't know. I
Good.
have to apologize again.
No, that's okay. I mean, I just want to be, and look, I'm also speaking as a taxpayer, so I know I represented the support of Montessori, and I certainly appreciate that there's a proposal that remains that steadfast in the plan, absolutely. But I remain committed to the district either way. I want to have commentary around our decisions around taxes either way, and longevity of the community either way, because I expect to be here for hopefully for a long time. So I'm just trying to understand if the guidance is per student affected, which I completely get. If we then turn our, that's the 2016 impact. If we then turn our attention to a 3 or 4 year projection with a bunch of good faith estimates and run rates, which are complicated Excel files, I'm sure you have, Mr. O'Toole. What is the guidance then that would be a scenario that you would accept, right? I can be owed an answer, but what's the next metric? So if it's number of least affected students, would we then want to project the highest confidence attributes, that we know of? Do we assume a $15 per thousand home tax increase year over year? Is that an acceptable assumption or not? What do we assume the increase in students? Is that acceptable or not? Do we assume, there's so many scenarios that we can assume. I wouldn't want to forsake progress with some positive news for the sake of lack of clarity of what the guidance is for long-term planning, which I agree is important.
Excellent point, and it was the administration that made the decision to look at the numbers of kids as being affected in terms of what we brought forward to the board. So we brought these forward to the board more so than they gave us the direction to go with the amount of kids.
Okay.
So I want to defend them a little bit. That was sort of what we started with, because
Okay.
we sit around and say the same thing. Where do you go?
Right.
Where do you cut?
Right.
When you've already cut, and we've already been through it all, we've cut so much. That's why I keep saying, we can't keep cutting.
Right.
We can't. So I would say, to your point, I think we have to keep looking at these small incremental tax increases like every other district across here is doing, and just keep it as little as possible so it's affordable. But we are the most affordable education in the county. When you look at where we're at with the millage, we're right in the middle.
Yeah.
You heard the information, I don't know if you were here when the gentleman came from Pasbo about how we're watching our money. I mean, we're clearly stretching, like I said, we're stretching the dollar about as far as we can. So, I don't want to pay tax